People are frightened about the potential of military troops coming to our neighborhoods. People are fearful of masked men in unmarked vans who could grab them on a street corner because of how they look or how they sound. People are scared to go to work. They're scared to take their kids to school. They're scared to go to school themselves or to go shopping. Last week, as you all know, the assassination of Charlie Kirk added to that fear, both about gun violence and about being killed for speaking your mind. This is a moment when Americans must come together and say clearly that threats and political violence are not the answer. I just got done with a roundtable from City of Chicago colleges, administrators, faculty, and undocumented students. It was an enlightening conversation. City Colleges is really a great example of an institution that's providing effective systems of support for immigrant students, especially as they're being targeted by the federal government in this turbulent time. One thing that we discussed is the genuine fear that our people and our communities are living with right now. I feel that, especially over the last several weeks, in talking to folks all across Chicagoland, they are living in fear in their homes, from Berwyn to Austin to Englewood to Little Village. People are frightened about the potential of military troops coming to our neighborhoods. People are fearful of masked men in unmarked vans who could grab them on a street corner because of how they look or how they sound. People are scared to go to work. They're scared to take their kids to school. They're scared to go to school themselves or to go shopping. Last week, as you all know, the assassination of Charlie Kirk added to that fear, both about gun violence and about being killed for speaking your mind. This is a moment when Americans must come together and say clearly that threats and political violence are not the answer. Because, well, we are now living in a moment when there's an alarming trend in this country. It's been going on for the last several years. The attempted assassination of President Trump, arson at Governor Josh Shapiro's home, the murders of folks at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, bomb threats against the Texas House Democrats when they were here in the Chicago area, plots to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, bomb threats at both political parties' headquarters, the assassinations of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the shootings of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Political violence has increased substantially against both Republicans and Democrats. Democracy is designed precisely to avoid political violence, and it's now incumbent upon leaders of all stripes to work together to stop it. Most especially, this should come from the top. Yet with each new crisis in recent years, we are reminded that we cannot rely on President Trump to tamp down the anger and the passion in the aftermath of political violence. Instead, he actively fans the flames of division, as he did on Friday, regularly advocates violence for political retribution, and in more than one case declares we are at war, not with a foreign adversary, but with each other. I don't believe any of that. Our people are not at war with one another. In these moments, real leaders offer words of solace and calm. Except for one, every president in my lifetime has done this in the wake of political violence. They take action for positive change. They bring people together. They make Americans feel safe. They let them know violence is never the answer. This is a watershed moment in our country. We can choose to stay silent and live in fear of more political violence, or we can choose to be loud for peace, for compassion, and for an America where people settle their political differences through free speech and at the ballot box. Let's be those people. That's the path Illinois chooses, and I implore the President to do the same. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from members of the media. Yes?
For weeks now, Chicago has been preparing for this massive influx Bovino-style tactics that we saw in LA. You were suggesting maybe Mexican Independence Day festivities might be a target. We haven't seen that scale. Where are we now? What do you expect? Are people no longer afraid? Are they not coming more? Or what do you?
No, ICE has been gathering its agents. It has taken them longer than I think they anticipated. And so we still, and they are active, as you have seen. They are, and we've seen a death on Friday as a result of their entering communities and putting people into fear. So I expect that this will continue. I expect that they now have more people on the ground and will effectuate their plans to an even greater degree. Yes, Marianne.
Governor, from your initial comments about Charlie Kirk and your comments again today, there was been some pushback from Republicans. Some said they would like to file articles of impeachment. They were so upset with what you had to say. Some might even perceive these comments today as a sorry, but you're still blaming President Trump, and they're going to say this is not the appropriate time.
Anyone who is fomenting attacks, anyone who is saying things that, especially in this moment, right, when we should have calm, when we should have someone at the top who is asking people to take a step back, anyone who's doing that deserves criticism. And I think it's incumbent upon me as the leader of this state to tell people that we need to act with calm in this moment, that people need to act peacefully in this moment.
You have called Republicans Nazis.
No, I have not. That is completely false. I have never called Republicans Nazis.
I'm glad you cleared that up because there are some.
Well, that's what they'd like to say. They're lying. They're lying.
Someone asked me to ask you that.
Well, that's not what I called them.
But are you as well, by not just calling out political violence and ending it, by you also criticizing, are you fomenting?
No, look, we can be critical of one. This is a democracy. We can be critical of one another. We can belong to different political parties and have different views and act in a peaceful fashion. I have always advocated that if one is to protest, they should protest peacefully. I've always advocated that you should speak out, use your megaphones, your microphones, stand on a soapbox to do so, go to the ballot box. Those are all the ways that in politics we act. That's the way I've always known that we act in political life in the United States. And yet now we see, that there are people who not only act violently, but those who encourage that kind of violence. And especially in this moment, we should be asking people to instead call for calm. And that's what I'm doing. I think that's what our leaders should be doing across the board. Yes, hi, Olivia.
Last week, it didn't sound like you were totally confident that the National Guard wasn't going to come. Today, you mentioned again people are still kind of scared. What's your level of confidence on whether they won't actually show up, and what are you hearing from sources of the government on that?
Well, I'm pleased that the president has said that he is not sending National Guard or military troops to Chicago. So we should all celebrate that comment of his, and I'm glad to hear it. On the other hand, as you've heard, the president says things one day and then goes back on them the next day, changes his mind from week to week. So we never really know what he intends to do. All I can say is that sending troops into any American city is a terrible idea. the law and the Constitution only allow it in the case of insurrection or a national emergency, and those are not taking place in any city across the United States.
So no updates from a week about that, so kind of the same as Friday.
Have not heard anything more than what the president said on Friday.
Governor, there was a couple of days to review some of the images that come out from the ICE shooting in Franklin Park. What is your impression of how that went down?
We need more information. We've asked ICE for all of the information around it. They have given very little. I know that there is an ICE agent who was taken to the hospital. Don't currently know that person's condition, don't exactly know what the injuries were or exactly from what. But it's important for us to know that, as well as what were the circumstances that were leading them to pursue this person in the way that they did. This is somebody who, as I understand, was on their way home perhaps from dropping their children off at daycare. We don't exactly know what all the circumstances were, so it's hard for me to make comments about it. But the important thing is we should have transparency, just like, there's frustration over people wearing masks and throwing people into vans in a way that does not seem American to me. It does not seem constitutional to me. We now see that ICE is unwilling to share the details of what has happened. If this were the Chicago Police Department, if this were the Sheriff's Office in Cook County, if this were Illinois State Police, you would have had a lot more information already released. But apparently ICE is unwilling to provide the transparency that I think the American public and the public here deserves.
Would you call for the Illinois State Police to have some hand in custody of these kids?
Well, if, again, this is the federal government, we don't have the ability to have state or local resources focused on investigating the federal law enforcement agencies. But, again, this is the most unusual situation I've seen in my entire lifetime, where we have no transparency and the federal government is not policing itself. Even the offices of inspector generals are being, dismantled under this administration. So we may never really know what the truth is.